Welcome to the Meredith Show. I am so excited because we're broadcasting coast to coast just for your inspiration today. My guest, David Pable, joins us from Columbia, South Carolina. David, thank you so much for being on the Meredith Show.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm glad to be on.
Now, David, thank you. Now, we're all suffering, even on this coast, from some allergies, so I'm particularly appreciative that you've been able to muster up the strength to be with us. We have a really important show and actually a quite serious subject. So I'd really like to start at the beginning. You had a rather ordinary beginning. From what I understand, you have two lovely daughters, quite traditional. And there were things inside that weren't settling with you. Could you explain to me how you discovered the real you? Because
I
it was a tough struggle.
My whole life I knew I was gay, but it was something that from other family influences and things like that, where I thought it was something that I could change or something that was broken that needed to be fixed. So I don't think I was ever really truly myself until I finally got to the point of wasn't going to come out. I was actually going to commit suicide rather than come out.
Because it was so painful just dealing with your personal truth?
I was so worried about what everybody else was going to think or what they were going to do, and I was never taking into consideration myself. And I think one of my big epiphanies, and I apologize for my dogs are running around in the back.
That's all right. We're fans of furry people. I have one in my background too, so no worries.
But so I spent years worrying about what people were going to think. I never really paid attention to myself, my own emotions, my own things that I cared about. I did everything that I thought other people wanted me to be.
And that led to a lot of misery. Yeah. I almost want to see your doggies back there. Are they having fun with each other? You have two.
Yeah, they are. Lucy, Ethel, where are you?
We hear them.
You're up on the ones up on the.
Oh my gosh! On your coffee table, or is that ottoman?
Well, it's a leather ottoman, so
they think it's a play place.
The old dog, she always laid up there So
now it keeps going. Well, sorry, I easily distracted because I'm a lover of all things furry. So, but on a serious note, so it was a really hard beginning with a long struggle for you. But the real message today that we'd like to bring out is, we discussed this briefly, just you and I, there's always hope. When did you recognize that you didn't want to kill yourself, but that life was really worth living?
Well, I had gotten to the point of where I met somebody, and I think it was the first time in my life with him that I can honestly say I think I felt love, or I felt what love was all about. That I loved other people, but it was just that there's a cartoon that goes around and it's Piglet asking Pooh, how do you spell love? And Pooh says, you don't spell love, you feel it. And I firmly believe that. And this person, his name was Jeff, and he lived a triple life, we'll call it, and told lots of lies and told, to try to cover up, his true self. And in the end, he committed suicide. And that was probably one of my darkest days. But, I look back, 14 years later, it was a new beginning for me. And it took me some time. I mean, that's when I found out that he had HIV, and that, within that year I tested positive for HIV. So I had a lot of things that I thought were like the end of the world moments. But I can look back clearly today, and with a better understanding of myself, and with lots of therapy and things like that over the years, that, that was a beginning. And sometimes we have to go through things like that so we can help other people.
We often hear reoccurring themes. The show is always dedicated to inspiring, but it's often, like you said, in the darkest hour that we recognize not only our strength, but how many lovely people there are in the world if you're open to leaning on them, to reaching out, and to looking for help. And I think that's a nice segue into how you're dedicating your life at this time. Not only are you enjoying
it,
you tell me a little bit about that.
I spent so many years, the first few years when I found out I was positive and stuff, I thought I was, that I had a death sentence and different things. And HIV care has changed a lot over the years. And I think our own mental state is as much has much of a thing to do with how our well-being is. And so if we want to stay healthy, even, if you have diabetes, if you have HIV, if you have, something that still is something that you have to manage, that you can make it work. And, my intention was originally, I'll live 10 or 20 years. And my grandmother was 95, and that's my intention, is to make it to 95 years old. And today that's thoroughly possible. I stay connected with things about HIV from an advocacy standpoint, from, on our state, I'm on our state board and everything here in South Carolina. So I can be involved in the decisions that are being made. It's super important, that we do stay involved in things that are important to us. And obviously me staying alive for myself, as much as me see grandchildren or great grandchildren, is just as important. So a few years back, when I finally came to my senses about, it's not about me, it's about helping other people. I started writing a journal. And I think I shared the beginning of it with you the other night, where I kind of declared some things about who I wanted to be or where I wanted to go. And, things I wanted to focus on: peace and love, and kindness is something that's always in there in my thoughts. And
kindness is so important. Yeah, I don't want to brush over that. Let's talk about it for a moment. There are a lot of misconceptions still. You're in the South about AIDS or HIV, and you're really working to educate people. What are some important things people need to know about living with HIV, for instance, today?
Well, one thing is you can live with HIV. One of the biggest drawbacks that people have today is stigma with HIV.
Right.
And a lot is created in our own person, because we're not comfortable in our own shoes and that we have to walk around in every day. And I found that, when I started being able to just tell, if you and I were riding an airplane somewhere and you asked me, what I do, a couple of years ago, I might have hesitated, but today I tell you, and, and I say that I'm living with HIV and stuff. And I've never had anybody since I own it. I have HIV. I live with it. And, so from an educational standpoint, I'm always positive about it. Not everybody's going to, understand it. And not everybody, they haven't gone through something like that. And part of my mission is to make sure that we're educated to a modern standpoint, because a lot of people's fears are based from 30 years ago or 35 years ago.
Right. You can't get HIV from hugging someone, even, it's just, there are a lot of crazy misconceptions.
Today, somebody who is on treatment, virally suppressed, that's considered treatment as prevention. It's called TASP. And, if you're on treatment and you're taking your medicines regularly, you're going to the your physician at least twice a year, having full blood work done. In a lot of ways, people who are living with HIV, I think, know more about their health than people who just assume that they're healthy.
Mm. They're paying
and
tuning in, yeah.
So 30 years ago, and I had this conversation with somebody yesterday. 30 years ago, they didn't scientifically even know if a condom was okay, because they didn't know how HIV was transmitted, how the virus acted in general. But today we've got 30 years worth of science behind us, where we know exactly where it is. Now, someone who's not treated and won't go get tested and stuff, that's where most of the problems lie, new infections today.
Sure.
And a lot of times people always think that it's a gay disease, but it's not. It affects everybody.
In fact,
right now,
yeah,
young kids from 13 to 24.
That's what I was going to say. Tell me about some of the statistics are actually fascinating. Share with the viewers, for those who are just tuning in, David Pabel is an HIV not only survivor but activist. Tell us a little bit about who is the fastest rising population right now with HIV.
Right now, it's young Black males from the age of 13 to 24 years old.
Wow. So most people would not guess that. And is that because they're not using protection primarily?
It's protection. It's, depending on areas, the southeastern United States has the highest rate of infections, anywhere in the country, and especially the 9 deep South states.
Yeah.
South Carolina, Georgia, North Carolina. And it's our rural areas that are really hit harder.
And I would imagine they're not educated in these rural areas. Though they might have the disease, they're not aware of how to prevent it and so forth, correct?
And yeah, the stigma kind of comes back into that play where it's 30 years ago that people are thinking what they heard then. And, some people will say, I've heard people say that it's God's
punishment,
like his hammer down on gay people.
Yeah.
Worldwide, it's more heterosexual people have HIV. It's just in this country, it showed its face originally in the gay population. And so that part of it has been hard, is changing the ideals that people have on what it is or how it is. Well, it's a virus.
Yes. Ignorance is an ongoing battle in many arenas that what we find, especially. But what I find really particularly touching, David, is how dedicated you are to positivity. Almost every day, for those who'd like to get some additional inspiration, David has a very active Facebook. And I want to thank our viewers for tuning in. We have another viewer, Barbara from Las Vegas, tuning in. And special shout out to everybody who's watching all over the world and the rebroadcast. We thank you for caring so much. But I'd like to revisit your inspiration. You take a lot of photos and you share a lot of quotes. Why do you feel compelled to do this? Does it help you as well as others, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, if the way I look at it is, I started reading books, and one of the first books that I picked up when I was kind of transitioning to be more positive, I started writing my journal, and it's 158 pages right now. And I went back a few weeks ago and I was reading in it, and for a minute I was thinking, who wrote this? This is pretty good stuff. But what I realized is I was writing my heart, how I really truly feel, and I was saying the things that I wanted to achieve. And that was one of the things where I started to learn is talk about the things that you want, not what you don't want, because if you can give either one of those the same amount of energy, you might as well talk about the stuff that you want. I wrote this down about wanting to be more positive or wanting to be a better person. And is it every day? We have to wake up every day. And I started painting a while back, and I look at a blank canvas as a new opportunity that we can create and transform ourselves or our lives into something new, something beautiful. So I started to pay more attention when I was going for a walk, looking at stuff, and I started to photograph them, more detailed things. So I'd get really down close to the grass, and there's a lot that has to say for paying attention to the things that closely. I'm starting to live here and now today, where I used to either be stuck in the past, or I was trying to shoot so far into the future that I was not here present in this moment. And I really enjoy life. I love people. And when I started reading books, like the Dalai Lama, and I don't think I was ever much of a religious person. I mean, I could say the Lord's Prayer and stuff like that. But I think today I'm a much more spiritual person. And I appreciate the stuff that's written in the Bible and in, in Buddhism and things that come to my mind when I'm just walking down the street having a good thought about something, and I like to share it. So if I'm reading something that I feel impacts my life, I will share that on Facebook. Sometimes I'll share things more often. Sometimes it's not just for me. Sometimes the medicine in it was that somebody else might have posted something that reminded me that, oh, this is the way I want to make sure that I be. And maybe they're not that way today. I would never post it on their Facebook page, but I'll reshare it on mine. So at least that message comes through, because there's angels around us everywhere. And I think you said a few minutes ago, we just have to be receptive and open to receive the message that they have.
Well, I think you're a beautiful soul, and what I think we need more positive energy out there. So I encourage people, if you want to get in on some of this goodness, David shares a lot of what he's talking about on his Facebook. He's under David Pable. You can follow him. Are you on Twitter much? Because I know you gave me your Twitter handle. That's ELBPAD.
I do. Yeah, I do Twitter. It's funny. Facebook is probably my primary.
Okay.
My primary reach out. I do try to do Instagram and Twitter.
Okay.
I find that I do Twitter more often if I'm doing, like, if I'm in Washington, D.C. doing advocacy where we're doing Capitol Hill visits and stuff like that. I'll share things that I'm learning as I go along, or I'm big on selfies.
Really?
And the reason why I like selfies is, and I understood it when I went to the United States Conference on AIDS last year, I was initially taking pictures with everybody that I already knew. But to meet people, I started going to the person from, just walking up to anybody and introducing myself and asking them where they were from. And so if they said they were from San Francisco, I would have said, do you mind, can I take a selfie with you? And taken a picture and then made a cute thing, like California Dreaming, all the leaves are brown or something like that, hashtag California Dreaming. And so that was my one of my big things. I mean, I think I was one of the top 10 posters at that conference.
Wow. I get inspired at conferences too. Coming up next week, I'll be in Los Angeles at the world's biggest marketing conference. But for people who want to connect, just to make it easy, I put your Facebook link directly there so people can click it, share it, and get in on the goodness. If you would like to leave people with a little bit of inspiration, quite frankly, your whole story is amazing to me and very touching and important. So I thank you for being on the show. And we want the discussion to continue. So we encourage everybody who's just tuning in to connect with David on Facebook, as he would love to be a resource for you, especially if you're struggling a little bit with your happiness and being healthy and making healthy decisions. What advice do you have to somebody who's really, there are just so many people out there, let's face it, struggling to be themselves and be accepted. So I'd like to let you leave some pearls of wisdom for our viewers, because we're all about sharing the love.
And this is one of my favorite things that I have to remind myself all the time. And, in this country, we're very good at, making everybody competitive against everybody else. We only change the things that we want to change. My friend Ken taught me that a few years ago. And want is a super strong thing. So don't beat yourself up because you want something, and you're saying, well, I need to start doing this. Just start doing it. If you do it today and you're conscious of it today, and then you forget tomorrow, but you go back the next day, that's okay. Because the only person you're measuring yourself against is yourself.
Wow.
It's your life. You're the only person who has to truly live with you for the rest of your life. So you might as well, love the person that you are and do the things that make you happy. I find the more that I do things for others, the happier that makes me with myself. Where you would think that stuff that you do just for yourself,
yes,
makes it, and it maybe stuff that you do just for yourself momentarily helps you, but at the end of the day, the things that you do to truly help others without a motive, you do end up helping yourself. You just don't realize it right away.
I love that. Well, what a wonderful words to end the show on. Again, the Meredith Show is always looking for guests that share a story of inspiration. And David, you were perfect to be on the program, and I'm honored that you were able to spare the
Well,
time and so appreciative. And I really put a shout out there and a call for all those viewers who are watching right now. You must know someone who's doing something amazing. We hope you won't keep it to yourself. We ask that you reach out, tweet us, Facebook us. We want to have your friends and family and all those doing good things on the show. And we hope, above all, just like David said, you take a little time to share the love. Thanks so much for watching, David. Thank you for being our guest today on the show. It's a pleasure.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
Next time I'm at Vegas, I'll.
Yeah, come and visit. All right. Thank you, David, so much.
Bye-bye.